Hi, welcome back to ODE YouTube channel. Today is the 2nd of December. Let's go for, not on camera, there, for the number 2 ink window or door or whatever of the ink number 2 of the 2024 Inkvent Calendar by Diamine. So let's see what we have here. And it looks like a pink something, and it's called Wilted Rose. So it makes kind of sense that it is kind of this aged pink, and it is a standard ink, so there is no shimmer or anything inside. Let's see how this will behave on paper and in pen, because it will be too light for a fine nib pen. We'll see. So now I will proceed with the swatch and the rest of the video. I'll be right back. So let's see how this one looks on the paper. Let's take 3 little drops of this Wilted Rose. Kind of 1, 2, not much ink there. Okay, so let me put this inside of the water now, and let me just cap these immediately just to avoid problems, accidents. And now let's spread these with the knife. I would say this is a very, very beautiful brown. I usually don't like reddish browns, but this has some kind of different thing, not that much red, but I really like the looks of it. So we'll see. We'll need to let it dry and then see how it really behaves on paper. So I'll be back for the rest of the video. So let's take a look at this swatch now that is dry. So what we have here is, I would say, kind of also a dusty rose. I think the name Wilted Rose is very perfect for this color, but it's very hard to compare with some other colors that I may have. So I will bring here a couple of them. They are all from the Inkvent calendars from previous years. I don't have anything that's kind of similar to this one. I have here the mulled wine from 2019, the Inkvent calendar, and it is a much richer and kind of burgundy color. We have the raspberry rose from 2021, which is very similar to this one with less shading. We also have the red robin, which is kind also of a dusty color, but it is a red, and that's not a red, that's a rose, dark rose. And I have the brandy snap, which is also kind of a dusty color, but more kind of a caramel color. So there is nothing similar in my ink collection to this specific Wilted Rose. Now we will look at the chromatography, and let's see if this is helpful in any way. So what we can see here is that the color, which doesn't have shimmer, and it has some ability to shade. It has some darker parts and lighter parts, and you can also see some places where you can see like the frontier of the line, so that's interesting. And here you can see that it's kind of a gray baseline that is water resistant. Then all the color is not water resistant, and it is a mix of kind of magenta, kind of orange, red, and green. So this is what I have. The ink is not water resistant, but it has a component of it that it is a little bit. So for the review of this ink, I chose two pens as usual. One of them is a very small one, is the Wancher Puchico. I have it for a very short time yet. It is an eyedropper filled pen. I don't like eyedropper pens, but this is very fun. It doesn't post perfectly, so it's not that good in that regard, but it is so fun. It is so small and so fun to use. So I think it's really interesting, although it has it is a fine nib, a number 5 fine nib, but I have to say that this nib is really fine and not very wet, and you'll see that on the writing samples. The other pen that I chose is a pen that I always wanted to have for a long time, and it is the Parker Centennial Duofold, the Pinstripe edition, which has these very elegant stripes, and it is the chocolate because it's a dark brown, rich dark brown color. It is a beautiful pen, gold trim with a gold nib. The other one has a steel nib, the Puchico. And so this is an interesting pen, and this one has, can you see it? Maybe not. No, you can. It is a medium nib. So this one is an eyedropper, this one is a cartridge converter pen. And so that's what I'm going to show you right now, is how the ink behaves in two very different nibs. And we'll have three types of paper as usual. The first type of paper is the Moleskine paper, and we can see perfectly the difference of the behavior of the ink with two different pens. With the Wancher, you can see there is a very light color, which is really I would say it really reflects these parts that are less saturated, and you can see it behaves well. It has some bleed through, but only on the parts that are written with the Duofold. With this pen it does, because it's kind of dry, as I told you. So with the Duofold we don't see much feathering, but there is a little bit along the lines, along the fibers of the paper, and you can see that it gets really dark, it gets almost brown, and when you look at it you don't see that shade here. So in that pen it gets darker than any of the parts of the swatch that I made. So that's why it's fun to have a swatch made like this, and also the writing sample with two very different pens. I know it would be perfect to have one of each size. I cannot do that. I will already ink 50 pens for the whole calendar, so it's quite a job. The next paper we have is the Oxford Optic paper. It's a paper that I like a lot. I find that the Puchico is even harder to have a very good line on this paper, because it is smoother, so the ink doesn't go into the fibers as much, and you'll get more shading. You can see shading on both inks, even with the Puchico. And this paper is very good to capture the shading and sheens and everything like that. And you can see there is also shading with this paper, but because it is, I think it gets more on the surface and doesn't absorb that much, you'll see the shading is lighter on the Oxford paper than it is on the Moleskine paper. And on the back side, no bleed through, because this paper is quite good. And we have the third paper, which is the Navigator 80 grams per square meter copy paper, and we have almost no shading, because this paper doesn't allow any shading, and the Duofold, I think the writing of the Duofold is the lightest on this paper, and this is maybe the paper where the Puchico behaves better, because the finer nib, this paper is more absorbent, so I think the finer nib makes a more consistent line. But in this case we have more severe bleed through with the Duofold, but we also have some bleed through with the Puchico. So you see how this ink will behave. Finally, for the fourth type of paper, we have here the Rhodia dot pad, which will behave like this. So for this paper, I wrote here with the Wancher Puchico, so you can see the writing. It is, I would say, it is usually very similar with the to the Oxford paper. I think these two papers share the same characteristics, and I think I will change to Oxford paper soon for the reviews, because I'm getting out of my Rhodia stock and I cannot find it here in Portugal, and online stores there is not that much, so I think I will just stop using it. Now, for the water resistance, I made a line, I made these some things, and then I put some drops of water on top of it and let them there for a while, and you can see what I was talking about here. So this color washed away, but you have this gray color, and you can see it there where the droplet of water went, that you can see still the original line. So it's not, the ink itself is not completely water resistant, but you can see a faint shadow of what you wrote in gray. It's not the greatest thing because it's not that visible, but it's still visible enough so you can use it if it gets wet. About the drying time, I got around 20 seconds to dry. And so this is it. Let's just go for the write with two pens here on video. So first the Puchico, very, very small pen. And so I'm writing the usual phrase, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And now let's try the Parker Duofold, which is a beautiful pen, and it will give us a thicker line. It kind of dried there. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So with this ink we'll see a lot more shading as we saw before. So this is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I want to thank you, Appelboom, for sending me this calendar for review, and I hope to meet you here again tomorrow for another ink review. So, bye!